A very warm welcome to this Q&A video, where of course we cover more ground, because I'm directly answering questions. And some of the questions we'll cover today include: what will happen next in Kenyan politics? After the by-elections fiasco, what next? What do you expect going forward? That should produce a very interesting answer. I'm sure you already sensed that. And then the Kenya Shillings 1 million question. What really happened exactly in Mbere North? How did Ruto pull off what he pulled off? What happened? You don't want to miss the answer to that question. You don't. Trust me. And then the other question, of course, as you continue learning more and more about how elections have been rigged in the past in Kenya, the other question is, what does it really mean when the IEBC tells us we're waiting for a returning officer from North Hor or from Mbere North? The returning officer from Mbere North has not arrived, and therefore we cannot declare the results of that constituency, etc., etc. What does it really mean? Is this legal? Or it's the IEBC writing its own constitution, favoring itself and its masters? Stay with me for a most revealing show. Today, twende kazi. Watu wa Mbere North, ngoja kidogo. Iko maneno, okay? Lakini I beg you, ngoja kidogo. Let us deal with the questions that we can easily finish off with, so that we move on quickly. What does it mean when the IEBC tallying center at Bomas tells us that they cannot release the election results of a certain constituency because the returning officer for that particular representative place has not arrived? Well, the answer to that question is very simple. And it is in the following very simple, very clear sentence. Elections end where? Elections end at the polling station. And therefore, nobody can hold the election results from you for whatever reason, for whatever excuse, because they are waiting for a returning officer. Indeed, these returning officers who have switched off their phones, cannot be found, are late in coming back to Bomas, are usually people who have been compromised and the results adjusted with their blessings and with their signatures. This is what those people are. And this is part of the very crooked voting electoral system we have in Kenya. Very quickly on to the other question. What will happen next in Kenyan politics? Actually, whether you agree with me or not, the answer to that question is very clear, very obvious. One does not need to be a prophet to tell you with pinpoint accuracy what is going to happen next in Kenyan politics. Why? Because if there is a very large pothole that has developed bang in the middle of the road, Nairobi-Mombasa Road, turning like a blind corner, it is very predictable what is going to happen next. Maybe not immediately, but it is inevitable. Something bad will happen there. An accident. especially if vehicles are known to come into this blind corner at high speed, because a number of things can happen. Yeah, at that high speed, that vehicle can tip over, even if there's no other vehicle ahead, or there can be a head-on collision. Bottom line, what is going to happen next is very predictable. So, to be able to identify exactly where that pothole is on the Nairobi-Mombasa road, we need to back up a little so that we trace the location with pinpoint accuracy. Please allow me to give you another very quick illustration so that we're all on the same page, so that I'm sure we are all on the same page. You're going somewhere and you're new to Kenya and Kenyan roads, and therefore you decide whatever happens, you'll stick to the tarmac road. You won't turn off into any rough road. And then after a while, you realize you're completely lost. So you call Kumekucha, Chris, I'm one of your fans, I'm lost. Please help. Now, how am I going to help you? Because for starters, you have no idea where you are. Okay? So of course the first thing is for me to get a rough idea of where you are. Yeah, and where you're going if you still continue on that smooth road. Okay? And to do that, of course, we will have to start where you started the journey. Which direction did you head in out of Nairobi? What did you do next? What landmarks did you pass? What did you see on the way? Etc., etc. And then very quickly, I'll be able to tell you, oh, my brother, you're on the highway speeding towards Ethiopia. And maybe you wanted to go somewhere within the constituency called Mbere North. I'm sure you get it. And so very quickly, what will happen next in Kenyan politics? In August 2022, the presidential elections was massively rigged. We have never had another presidential election in the entire history of Kenya that has been rigged so massively like the 2022 presidential elections. Just to give you a quick picture, the genuine votes the person who was finally declared winner got were less than 3 million. And within those 3 million were votes which were already in the computer. They were in the algorithm. Bila kizungu mingi, mtu aliset computer, for every one vote Raila gets, the other person gets 1.5. And for them to get that 1.5, they must at least get one vote, okay, plus 1.5. I'm sure watu wa hesabu wame get it very quickly. Bottom line, 2022 presidential elections was not rigging. It was rigging on steroids. There is a difference, and this is important and very relevant to finding out where Kenya is going. And so this particular administration started with very minimal support in Kenya. And one of the reasons why they got away with it, was because of the very smart narrative, their strategy. What was their strategy? Their strategy was they were going to give us the narrative that these votes which gave Ruto the win, a vast majority of them, more than even from his own native Rift Valley, these votes came from Murema, Mount Kenya region. Why was this a smart move? Because very unfortunately in Kenya at that time, very many Kenyans, immediately they heard Murema, they would start seeing red. And of course when you start seeing red, your emotions have kicked in. You stop thinking. Now this is exactly precisely what happened in the Mount Kenya region during the 2022 presidential elections. Verified information, confirmed and reconfirmed. Former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta was very convincing in appealing to his community not to vote for Ruto. Okay? And the truth is, the community did not, let me repeat, did not vote for Ruto. This is what happened. a vast majority of them stayed at home. They did not turn up at all in the polling stations to cast their vote. We had a few supporters of Ruto who were so loud that they gave the impression that wako wengi. Okay? And then of course, we had youngsters, youth within the Mount Kenya region who were so annoyed at President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta that they wanted to punish him. Yeah, and therefore they were supporting Ruto. But this number was minimal. And the truth still is, many of those youngsters did not turn up to vote. Okay, that is the truth. And there's a lot of evidence in the public domain to support that. Local media stations showed us very clearly empty polling stations. Remember that? And then, according to me, the biggest piece of evidence, we were told that Raila and former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta lost in Uhuru's home polling station. Okay? Now, does that make sense to you? Imagine your shags. Everybody knows you. Everybody knows your father, even grandfather, etc., etc. And you are the President of the Republic of Kenya. And you convince the people in your shags. Just picture that. And of course, this manufactured win was widely publicized in the media, which is a consistent reflection of somebody's character and what they like most. Let me just leave it at that. Now, having said that, please don't get confused. The parts of the Murema who genuinely voted UDA were mainly in the areas of the Kuzos. I'm talking about the Ameru and the Embu, like Mbere North. However, remember that this is a small area and the total number of registered voters in this area is so little that really it would not act to boost somebody's votes, somebody who badly needs many votes, to win against a formidable opponent. Yeah, all this is very relevant to answering that question. What will happen next in Kenyan politics? Okay? This government, this administration, already with very limited support, came in with heavy taxes that crushed the economy and did so many other things that annoyed the public. Yeah, but mostly it touched the pockets of the people. We have said it many times on this channel before, that if you want to provoke somebody, you can do many things, but just touch their money. Utajua ujui. Okay? That is what happened. And now we're at that place where the government is not listening to what people are saying. Indeed, some members of that government are bragging. They're showing off their wealth. And we know that they don't have any factories. We know they don't have any businesses. We know that some of them were doing very poorly before the 2022 presidential elections. Yeah? We also know that some of them were already wealthy during those elections, but now have become fabulously wealthy many more times. And this has happened very suddenly. That is the situation in Kenya right now. And we also know that the people who supported, in fact their support was so crucial in making Ruto president, those people now have turned against the person they supported. Of course, I'm talking about powerful Western nations. Yeah, aid to Kenya has reduced dramatically. We are seeing investigative pieces against Ruto in very influential Western media. There is plenty of evidence to point clearly in that direction. Now, how does a dictator stay in power who's oppressing the people? Simple answer: they look for enough support to prop up their regime. The only way it becomes very difficult to remove a dictator is if that dictator has enough support on the ground. It becomes very difficult. Because what they do is that they surround themselves with their radical supporters. Okay, so it's difficult to get to them. Look at all the dictators in history and you'll find that that statement is very accurate. Now let's come back to Kenya. This regime does not have that kind of support. It doesn't. And the recent by-elections proved it beyond any reasonable doubt. because of what we saw happening on the ground. Okay? And so where we have arrived now is that situation where this government, which is much loathed, much hated, continues to provoke the people every day. Indeed, almost everything the government says provokes, causes the people. Okay? What do you think is going to happen next in that kind of scenario? Yeah, we have gone back and we have come right up to the present. And now we need an answer. In that kind of environment, in that kind of situation, what will definitely happen next? And the biggest, by far, mistake this regime has made, the biggest, yeah, they've made many mistakes, but this is the biggest, was made during the by-elections. How so? They send us a very clear message. They sent a message to the people of Kenya that was very clear. What was that message? The message was simply, we are going to rig the 2027 elections. Mtadu, we are going to rig them. We are going to rig them for sure. That is the message that has gone back to the people who are already seeing red. If it was me, I would have decided to have giraffe vision. Yeah, the by-elections are not as important as me staying in power after 2027. So what do? I pretend that the 2027 elections are going to be free and fair. The by-elections go like clockwork. Opposition people win all the seats and the people relax. They know, IEBC ni mzuri. There will be no rigging in 2027. That would have helped this regime much more than what they did. Okay, that's my opinion. You're welcome to have yours. But that is my experienced opinion. And I don't have to be right. Please educate me and show me where I'm wrong. Okay? And the truth is, we have already seen evidence of what is going to happen next. How so? In June 2024, the Gen Zs exploded in Kenya. Okay, very unexpectedly. And of course it is true that that thing simmered down, ikaisha. Okay? However, this is a situation where your radiator, the radiator of your car is overheating, and you reach Mtito and you pour a lot of water, you even put ice, and it cools down, and you continue the journey. My friend, the next time that thing overheats, it will explode. And this is exactly where we're going as a country. We don't know when it will happen, but it is inevitable. That is my answer to that question. And now the last question. What exactly happened in Mbere North? Okay. Without beating about the bush, the simple answer to that question is ballot boxes. Ballot boxes. Okay? There was no way that State House was going to allow the reality on the ground in Murima to show up very clearly in election results. In my opinion, that was a fatal mistake. Why? Because that information already is in the public domain. In fact, the whole world already knows it. We have seen so much evidence that Murima is no longer with this administration, that you cannot show us anything that will prove otherwise. Okay? Anyway, let's proceed. And it really reminds me of the old days. You know what used to happen in the old days? Is that the ballot boxes would be transferred from the polling station. In those days, the elections did not end at the polling station. And so when they're being transferred to the constituency tallying center, that Kajani, a lot could happen. It was very easy to switch ballot boxes. Switch ballot boxes, the genuine ones, with pre-marked ballot boxes, all with the votes of the favored person, who the system wants to win that election. And in many instances, this transportation under heavy police security but the police is part of the government. I think we all know that. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Under very heavy police security, these ballot boxes used to be transferred mostly after dark. Jijazie. Now in this instance, what happened is that some of those ballot boxes were already on the scene. And because it is being done by the state, serial numbers of the ballot boxes are not a problem. Something very interesting and very instructive happened in one particular polling station in Mbere North. Okay? All the opposition agents were there, and they were carefully looking to make sure that nothing fishy would happen. And all their seals were there. They examined them, they saw the seals were okay, and so the ballot boxes were opened. Wamudende, Wamudende, Wamudende. All the votes were for that man. And these agents could not believe their eyes. What happened? What is going on here? How was this one pulled off? And they were so shocked. You know, this one reminds me of Deputy President Kindiki's campaign of Wamudende, who the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission recommended should be prosecuted, and he changed his name. Yeah, you know what Kindiki was saying on the campaign trail? Wamudende no mercy noma. Wamudende no mercy noma. Well, the answer to that question, ni noma. Wariging, noma sana. We agree. Or rather, the system that was behind him. Now, let us continue this ballot boxes story. You already have the favored ballot boxes on the scene. You still have a problem. What do you do with the genuine ballot boxes? What do you do with them? Now, I'm not a crook, but if I was, what I'd do is wait for things to simmer down, wait for the election to be over, and then you quickly get rid of the genuine votes from the people. Ballot boxes. Now this one explains perfectly, yeah, the incident which has been all over social media, even with photographs, where we are told Ruku, yeah, the CS, with his bunch of goons, were burning ballot boxes. Does that make sense to you now? It should make perfect sense. Because in case somebody goes to court, these ballot boxes will be required by the court, and they're going to be presented. Surely the last thing you want are two ballot boxes with the same serial number. That is the last thing you want, and therefore you must destroy evidence after the fact. Friends, that is the sad thing that happened at Mbere North. That is the way it was done. I also believe that a very similar thing was done in Malava, yeah, where UDA also won. Okay? Won in quotes. Oh boy. Oh boy. Now, you know, last year, not even this year, last year, I painted a picture of this presidency and made predictions about what was going to happen going forward. And all those predictions have come to pass. All of them have come to pass, except one, yeah, which is still pending, the end of this regime. Now, at the center of that prediction was the reason, the real reason, which actually has something to do with the disease. Yeah, experts recognize it as a disease. Yeah. Actually, that was in a special report that anybody who wants to understand this administration properly, sio chuki tu and saying things and propaganda, no. Anybody who wants to understand this administration, this presidency, scientifically must take in that special report. And today, the last day of November, I have an amazing offer, okay, which I'm sure many of you will love. Wait for it, wait for it. Between now, November 30th, and tomorrow morning, December 1st, at exactly 10 a.m., this offer ends, because it is a crazy, crazy offer. You can be able to get a permanent golden key at, wait for this one, only Kenya shillings 4,999. Please rush. This offer will definitely come to a close at 10 a.m. December 1st, year of our Lord, 2025. You can see details on your screens right now. Opportunity knocks rarely. Many times it knocks only once. So please take full advantage of this. Of course, a golden key will allow you to have this special report I'm talking about. Yeah, scientific analysis of this presidency from experts, by the way, people who know what they're talking about. And of course, all the other special reports, including the one on how walimaliza Raila, all of them. And of course, you'll have a free pass to anything and everything Kumekucha going forward. Forever. It's a permanent golden key. Only 4,999. Please, if you're in a position, act with speed. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.